It's Friday, November 10th, 2006, and the VikingsKickoff.com campaign is featured on Minnesota Public Radio.
And is hoping to change the behavior of fans inside the Metrodome, or at least change the music they hear. Andy Saur wants the Minnesota Vikings to change the music that is played in anticipation of a kickoff. He thinks the Vikings should be playing a Led Zeppelin song, rather than the one they use by Guns N' Roses. His efforts have gotten nationwide media attention, but he admits he's still in for a long struggle, as we hear from Minnesota Public Radio's Bob Kelleher.
If you've ever sat through a Vikings game in the Metrodome, you've heard it. That loud, echoing guitar. It's the opening riff from a popular 1987 rock song, Guns N' Roses' Welcome to the Jungle. It's what they play in the Metrodome when the Vikings kicking team is about to boot the football up the field. It gets the crowd on its feet. But Andy Saur of Duluth says there's a more appropriate song out there, from British rock legends Led Zeppelin. The song's a few years older than Andy Saur. Immigrant Song led off the band's third album in 1970.
Been a big fan of the Vikings all my life, and also been a fan of Led Zeppelin, and the Immigrant Song is about the Vikings, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. We're not close to any jungles in Minnesota, but we have plenty of ice and snow.
Now, Saur is kind of a creative guy. He's a graphic artist, he's married to an artist, so he thought he'd take his idea to the Minnesota Vikings football team in a creative way.
I did a painting originally of 3 Viking ships sailing across the rough seas or whatever, and made a print out of it. And then in that print, I had like a little speaker with an MP3 player on it. They could push a button on the actual print, and the song would start playing right out of the poster. So it was like an interactive art piece.
And he sent it along to the top of the organization, Minnesota Vikings owner Ziggy Wilf. Surely, he thought, that would convince Wilf to adopt Led Zeppelin's tune for the kickoff song.
I got the standard no solicitation letter when I got it returned back to me, and haven't given up yet.
Saur's got a bit of Vikings blood in him, with grandparents from Finland and Norway. He wasn't going down without a fight, so it's on to the web, Saur's VikingKickoff.com site, where he's mounting a public relations campaign and gathering names on an online petition. He's gotten some attention, articles in the Duluth News-Tribune and the St. Paul Pioneer Press. One day, he was contacted by a reporter from Sports Illustrated magazine.
I got an email on my website, and he asked, well, would you mind if we called you, ask you a few questions? Like, sure, that'd be great. So later on that afternoon, he called me and interviewed me for 5-10 minutes and said, okay, look for this in the upcoming issue of Sports Illustrated.
There, in the October 16th Sports Illustrated, was one paragraph about Andy Saur and his quest, on the same page as sports names like Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb. Again, Saur was hopeful. Surely the Vikings would change the song now. But no, not according to Brian Harper in the Minnesota Vikings marketing department. Apparently, Welcome to the Jungle is something of an institution.
You know, we don't really look at it as what song are we playing as much as, you know, the soundbite itself. And that beginning soundbite to Welcome to the Jungle is very recognizable to Vikings fans.
Harper says it gets fans fired up, out of their seats and cheering. Change the song, he says, and you have to retrain the fans. A significant learning curve, Harper calls it. And the words about Vikings or jungles aren't important anyway, he says, because the song stops before the words ever start, just before the kicker nails the football. Still, Harper's impressed with Andy Saur's tenacity and his support for the Vikings football team. You never know.
Well, nothing's impossible, that's for sure. When we get into the off season, we'll discuss all the different things that are out there that we want to talk about, and music is always one of them.
Meanwhile, Saur's got more than 500 names on his petitions, and he's thinking of taking his idea and his petition to the Vikings' door, right there among the tailgaters partying outside the Metrodome some Sunday afternoon. In Duluth, I'm Bob Kelleher, Minnesota Public Radio News.
I'm thinking Morning Edition sports commentator Steve Rudolph may have a thing or two to say about this. He's the guy who actually plays the music during the Vikings games at the Metrodome. By the way, the Vikes will take on the Packers in a border battle at the Dome this weekend. We'll see what happens there.
We'll drive our ships in the programming is supported by Partners for Affordable Energy at
How cool is that?